Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center, man. As you can see, we will be visiting my alma mater today, which is Ruston High. We have Mr. Aidan Anding. He's a 5'11 cornerback, 165 pounds. He's an LSU commit, so he will be heading off to LSU, and I believe to do good things with LSU, just like how he done in high school. So 24/7 Sports has him ranked as a 4-star with a 93 overall. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of just visit his athletic background. So we're gonna start off with track and field. So in track and field, Mr. Aidan Anding was a Louisiana 5A silver medalist in the long jump 23.23-9. I hope I'm saying that right in terms of track talk. I'm not the most educated when it comes to track, but he did that as a junior. He finished 6th at state with a 21.73 200. He also ran a 10.98 100 for second place at regionals. Louisiana 5A state qualifier in the long jump as a sophomore. Long jump 22-2.5 in April 2023. Finished third at regionals with a 21-8.5 long jump. Louisiana 5A regional long qualifier in the long jump as a freshman. Posted a season best 21-5 in April 2022. Also ran a 23.21 200 and a 52.39 400 as a freshman. So he also plays. So he's a triple sport athlete, track, basketball, and football. So I'm gonna touch on basketball briefly. As a junior, he earned Louisiana District 2 through 5A first team basketball honors, averaging 14.8 points and shooting 37% from 3-point range. Not too bad. In football, we're gonna jump into his 2023 season. He was a key defensive playmaker as a junior for Ruston, Louisiana Division I non-select state championship squad when they beat Zachary back in 2023. So I know some of you might be looking at, okay, well, what happened to his sophomore and his freshman year? So for those who may not know, Aidan did not play football his freshman, his sophomore year. He came back his junior year and his senior year. So that just goes to shows volume to who he is as an athlete, because this kid is all around athlete. Like I say, he's a triple sport athlete, track, basketball, and football. And he's a hell of an athlete, for those who may not know. So now we're going to jump into his statistics, his stats from this past season. So I had to kind of clarify things because I was looking like, hold up, man, this dude had like one ridiculous season. And I'm going to tell you guys why. So in this past season, Aidan Anding had 5 interceptions. He had 1 sack. He had 1 kickoff return for a touchdown. He had 1 punt return for a touchdown. Well, 2 punt returns for a touchdown. And he had 2 forced fumbles. Now, the reason why I said that I had to kind of double check, because as you've seen early on in the video, that a lot of his damage he did early on was in a jamboree. He did have 2 interceptions in that jamboree. One of them was a pick six, and then he had one kickoff return for a touchdown. But if you would have been counting those 2 interceptions, he would have had 7 interceptions on the year and would have had an extra touchdown. Also, too, disclaimer: one of those highlights against Cabot that was called back via a hold. But I just want to put that out there because you see that he's a very versatile athlete. He's a good cover corner. He's a good tackler as a corner too. But then he also does it on both sides in terms of special teams and on defense. And even when you go back and look at the state championship game from this past season, where I think that he kind of got his rite of passage was when he was matched up against Trades Green, who is currently right now at LSU. And for the most part, he did a pretty good job. He controlled what he can control. That matchup, it's kind of a hard matchup when you're dealing with a guy who's like 6'8", and you're only 5'11". So it's so much that you can do. But I think for the most part, if anything, he showed that he's willing to take on that task, and he showed that he's willing to compete, regardless if it is considered a matchup. I had wrote down some things on here, like in terms of like some pros and cons from him. Like I said, he likes to tackle as a cornerback. Most corners don't like to really tackle. Most cornerbacks would prefer to just sit back in coverage. I get it. I played corner and I understand that, but I do love the fact that you have a cornerback like him who doesn't mind sticking his nose in there in between the tackles and making plays, and just like you seen, he came off the edge with a corner blitz and made a blitz in the Neville game, which Ruston doesn't call a whole bunch of corner blitzes, but it shows you that whenever his number is called, he can show up. And that, to me, that's the biggest thing with this kid. I watched him from week 1 against Neville all the way up until, the state championship. And man, it's like some way, somehow, this kid found a way to impact the game week by week. Obviously he was hurt for Washita, but for the most part, he was always on the field and he was always competing. Even when you look back at the Stephenville game, he had just given up a touchdown. And then right after that, he goes on the very next play and runs back a kick return. And then to kind of, put the icing on the cake after that against that same receiver, he was able to get him a pick against him eventually. So, I just seen this kid compete throughout the years, man. Throughout this season and even last year, and just seeing his growth from last year up into this year. Like a lot of times when you went and looked at his games, he really looked like a man amongst boys, and it's rare to see that as a corner. Obviously, offensive players are a lot easier. It's a lot easier for them to dominate because the ball is constantly in their hand. But as a cornerback, you have to, go take the ball away from them to be able to get your recognition. I think he does a good job at affecting plays, not just in the pass, but like I said, also as the run. He's always around the ball, as you can see. And that's a good sign of having play recognition and the game being kind of slower to him. So he's able to put himself in position to constantly make plays. He has great ball skills, as you can see on that prior kick return against Stephenville, even how he caught that kick return. That shows you how good his ball skills is. I already touched on him being a versatile athlete, but I do think that, and it was even times this season where he lined up as receiver, and they just didn't connect. But I like the versatility of him welcoming that challenge of saying, okay, I'm willing to get uncomfortable to go and play receiver, even though I've been playing corner all last year and all this year. And I would say for the most part, he's a physical corner. In a lot of games, you can see him up, at the line of scrimmage, getting physical with the receivers, trying to throw off the timing of the route. And then, like I say, I just look at, his aggressiveness when it comes to tackling. You know what I mean? Not just the receivers, but the running backs and the tight ends. He made a heck of a tackle on Thomas Campbell in the Neville game. And that's a pretty big kid. Now, if I had to say cons, I would say things that I kind of want to see a little bit more of him, and I kind of just want to look at him in press coverage. I feel like going to LSU, he's going to, you're going to have to be able to play press and deal with one-on-one situations. So I would like to kind of see that a little bit more. And obviously, I think he has more developing he can do there. I would say he has to work on his hips a lot more, which will help him in those one-on-one press coverage situations. He occasionally has gave up some big plays due to, I think, just not having enough fluidity in his hips, but for the most part, he's able to hold his ground. So I kind of think those are things that he kind of need to work on. But I think in terms of like everything else, obviously, height 5'11", he's going to pick up more weight when he gets up to LSU and gets under that weight program and the nutrition. I can see him possibly getting up to about 205 pounds with a 5'11" frame. I think that's pretty good. He probably would be used more as a corner, a slot corner, I would say. And slot corners are much more valuable in the game of football, if you really want to be honest, because as a slot corner, you're guarding, it's a numerous amount of routes that the receivers can have because they don't have the sideline working against them as an outside receiver. So, I'm interested to see his growth going to the next level and just seeing, what he does in the future. Like I say, this kid is a competitor, man, in and out. I always see him willing to take on the challenges, and he looks like, when you watch film, he looks like one of those guys who loves the game. And when you're dealing with guys who loves the game, those are the type of guys that you like to have on your squad team. Those are the guys you like to go to war with because you know that whenever it's time to go to war, they're going to show up. But that's pretty much I have on him. Man, if it's anything that I missed on, or if it's anything that you guys might have wanted a little bit more clarity on, man, you can feel free to comment down below, man. I'd be looking forward to hearing from you guys. Also, man, if you're new to the channel, man, make sure you subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like this video as well. But if you enjoyed this video and you're new to the channel and you enjoyed this video and several other videos, man, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, click that post notification bell where you be notified every time I upload, man, as I got these videos dropping more consistently, man. And I'll see y'all in the next video.